Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabe, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Hello children, and welcome back to Children's Bible Stories. I'm your host, Reverend Jake Zabel, and join with me today is my little acolyte, Heinrich, here to help me. Today we're going to be doing the story of Elijah's assumption into heaven. So after Elijah's victory at Mount Carmel, he had run away scared because he was worried that Ahab and Jezebel were going to kill him. And so God had sent him back with the commission that other people were going to take his job for him. So God sent him to go speak to Jehu, who was going to become the new king of the northern kingdom Israel and replace Ahab. But also Elisha was going to replace Elijah as the new prophet. And therefore God was now going to take Elijah up into heaven. And so one day Elijah and Elisha went on this big journey, and they went to a whole bunch of places. They went off to a place called Gilgal, then down to Bethel, then up to Jericho, and then they came... Where did they come to, Heinrich? Do you remember where they came to?
The Jordan River.
That's right. The big Jordan River. And do you remember what Elijah did?
He took off his coat.
He did. He took off his coat and he struck the Jordan. And then what did it do?
Parted.
It parted. Which is going to have to be how we're just going to part. It parted so that they could walk through on dry land, just like Moses and them did with the Red Sea. And then Elijah and Elisha went over to the other side. And as they were over there, Elijah promised Elisha that he could ask for one thing, and that, if he behaved himself and was a good, faithful servant and trusted in God, then he could have this one thing. And what Elisha asked for is to have a double portion of the Holy Spirit than what Elijah had. And so what that means is that Elijah, in his lifetime, had done 7 miracles. And so Elisha was going to get double that, which meant, how many miracles would Elisha then do, Heinrich?
14.
That's right, 14. Double 7. And so that's what Elisha asked for. And Elijah said, all right, if you keep an eye on me when I get taken up into heaven and you don't look away, then God will bless you with this promise. And so what happened then is they went off, and as they were going, what happened, Heinrich? They were standing there.
And a big chariot came.
Yeah, was it a certain type of chariot?
Fiery one.
So have we got the fiery chariot? Oh, there it is. See, children, a big chariot with fire. And a big horse of fire. And it came, and it separated Elisha and Elijah. And then Elijah... Now, the Bible doesn't actually say Elijah was inside the chariot. It just says the chariots were there. And Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. So, here we go. Heinrich, you take Elijah off to heaven. Elijah off to heaven. And, see, Elijah, he got what was called assumed into heaven. Can you say that word, Heinrich? Assumed?
Assumed into heaven.
Do you know what assumed into heaven means?
No.
So, when we die, our body lies in the ground and our soul goes to heaven. But those who get to be assumed into heaven, what happens to them, Heinrich?
Their body stays whistle.
Yeah, so both body and soul goes up into heaven. Now, Heinrich, do you know how many people in the Bible got to do that?
2.
That's right. There may have been more, according to church tradition. Some other figures may have been assumed bodily into heaven. The Roman Catholics think that Mary might have been. Some Jews think that Moses died and that when God came and took his body away, that he took his body onto heaven as well. But those are just some traditions, and we don't know if they're true or not. What we do know is true is that the Bible told us that both Enoch in the book of Genesis and Elijah both got to be bodily assumed into heaven. So Heinrich, you're right. According to the Bible, we know of only 2 people that got to be assumed into heaven. There may have been some more, but we don't know for sure. Now, do you remember what happened after Elijah went into heaven?
He got to become a prophet.
Who did?
Elisha.
That's right. Not just that, but as Elijah was going to heaven, his coat fell off. And Elisha went and picked it up and put it on. And then Elisha went back to the Jordan River, and what did he do?
Strike it again.
Yeah, he struck the Jordan River with the same coat of Elijah, and the Jordan parted, and Elisha went off and he crossed on dry land again. And that was the first miracle of Elisha. And he would go on to perform another 13 miracles, the last of which only happened after he was dead. That's a story where Elisha was dead and in the tomb, and he'd only done 13 miracles in his lifetime. But God promised him that he could do 14. And so, what happened one day is there was a big war happening, and during the war, some people they didn't have time to check which tombs they were to bury people in, and so they grabbed the dead person, they chucked him into a random tomb, and it happened to be Elisha's tomb. And when the dead body touched Elisha's dead body, he came back to life. Not Elisha, the other man. And so Elisha, even though he was dead, managed to resurrect somebody, making the 14th miracle that he did. And that then, children, is the story of the calling of Elijah up into heaven. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel, and we're joined again by our acolyte Heinrich. Goodbye and God bless.